I have watched so many people lose millions of dollars because they had the wrong transaction team around them. And that's not even finance. If you're paying cash, real estate guys are really bad at this. Anybody who does like deal junkie type guys are really bad at this. They're like, oh yeah, I'm going to run my own transaction. Be sure to assemble a good transaction team that you can trust, and it will take you a long way.
Welcome to Own the Jet by Aspen Aero Group, where we share perspectives from some of the leading voices in private jet ownership and business aviation. I'm your host, Derek Savage, along with my co-host, Jason Spoor, president of Aspen Aero Group. Our guest today is Preston Holland from Prestige Aircraft Finance and the author of the Private Jet Insider newsletter. Preston is passionate about making sure his high net worth clients are getting the right finance solution for their situation. Join us as we dive deep into the mechanics, mindset, and moments that define jet ownership. And together, we'll learn what it takes to own the jet.
The Preston Holland, thank you for joining us on Own the Jet.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Yeah.
The cool thing about having you on the program here is that you have a unique ability of taking all of these crazy amalgamous things that people don't understand and distilling it down into something that's like easy for someone like me to get, right? That doesn't know anything about private aviation, the finance world of surrounding private aviation. It's like you have a gift for that. So
Yeah, for sure.
happy to have you on the show. Happy to be talking to you about this. So
super glad you're here.
Yeah, I think the cool thing is one of the things that you guys are doing here that I think is going to be really helpful for you over the long term is it's a muscle. Explaining things in a really simple way is only achieved by repetition. Yeah. And so I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine, and he was like, how do I find my voice in my industry? Yeah. And he was like, I don't feel like when I say things, I don't exactly say them right. And I told him, I said, look, if you look back on like the history of any sort of content that I create, the early stuff is terrible. Like it's not good. It doesn't read well. It doesn't get any engagement, like all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. But you literally have to put the content out. And as you do that, you'll find your voice and you'll see what resonates and you'll understand. And so what I think is cool about what you guys are doing here is like this is a regularly cadenced show, and it's not just one part of the industry. And as it continues, it gets better, and it's really hard in the beginning. Like it's really, really hard to get started, but you have to push through that point, and then it becomes, understandable.
It becomes a big muscle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's like working out, or it's like, it's you have to train that, and it's inside your brain. And so I write a newsletter. It's called the Private Jet Insider. Yeah. You can find it at PrestonHolland.com. It's distilling down complex concepts and making them digestible for the everyday human. That's what I like to do. So anyways, it's a little background on me. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about Prestige. So because Prestige is your day job, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
that's like what you do.
Exactly.
This is all like this is what people may know
fun.
you for.
I create content for fun.
Yeah.
Like it's literally a blog, and I'm a practitioner by trade.
Right. But your company is Prestige.
So I own an aviation finance brokerage, debt advisory service. Essentially, what we tell people is when you call your bank, they will do your RV, your house, your line of credit. They'll probably do anything business banking that you could possibly need. And then you're going to call them and say, I'm buying an airplane. And the president of the bank is going to go, well, we have one on the books. Yeah. We have no idea
how to help you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we help people navigate the fairly complex world of aviation finance and structuring and understand. We create market efficiency. Right. So we work with a platform of about 35 to 40 lenders that we do consistent transactions with, and then a network of another probably 20 on the back end. And that ranges from household names to banks you've never heard of to private debt funds to leasing companies, kind of across the spectrum. Wow. We sit down with a client, we say, what's the right answer for your need? And we typically collaborate with the broker, the tax person, somebody like KJ, an attorney, put together the transaction team, and us, the transaction team, shapes and forms the transaction to be the right structure for the client. And so we'll work with the broker on pre-buy inspection, and we'll work with them on maintenance tracking and specs and all of the technical aspects of the aircraft. We will deal with the capital market side. So we have relationships with lenders. We're oftentimes able to drive market competition, which creates the best structure for our clients, and then hopefully have a successful outcome so that when they go to do their next one, we're going to run it back and do the same thing. And I probably talk myself out of 30% of deals, 20 to 30% of deals. I'll sit down with either the principal or the CFO or the head of the family office or the controller or whoever does the cost of capital calculation.
Right.
And I'll say, what's your cost of capital on XYZ?
Yeah.
And they tell me, and I say, look, you're not going to beat that on an airplane loan. So you're probably better off doing that until rates readjust and maybe we could do a cash out refi, or, your cash isn't really earning the type of returns that make sense to put leverage on the airplane, or, hey, you have this beautiful stock account. It's currently uninhibited and you can take credit lines off that. Yeah. Oh, I had no idea. I don't want to sell this stock to avoid capital gains and I want to buy an airplane. Well, have you thought about taking a stock portfolio based loan instead of putting leverage on the airplane?
Yeah.
Maybe not. Right. And so we try and be consultative in that.
Yeah.
And
then even if they don't end up needing your services,
exactly.
you helped them out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's good.
And typically it means that now the next time they go to buy something and they can't do that, they're calling us and saying, okay, you were honest with me. So that's the whole goal.
Yeah.
So if I'm getting into that conversation, what's the first thing I need to ask myself about my situation? And then what's the first thing you're going to ask me?
You need to ask yourself, what does my next 5 years look like from a capital investment in my business? So am I trying to buy another company, expand more regionally? Am I trying to do a merger with another franchise and take over a new territory? And what type of capital requirements am I going to have for that? If the answer is no, and you're sitting on a fat pile of cash and you are risk averse, the answer may be pay cash. But if you're on the growth trajectory or you have your cash returning 12, 15, 18%, which is not uncommon for many of my clients, it makes no sense to not take a 6 or 6.5% today loan on your airplane, because that cash works better for you elsewhere. So that's the number one thing that you need to ask yourself as you go to buy an airplane.
Okay. And then maybe the next question, because this has been a huge topic, right, is the new bonus depreciation situation and how that plays into that part of the conversation, because now the rules have changed a little bit as opposed to what they were last year. So can we talk about that a little bit?
We look at this through a holistic picture when we are looking at giving advice, because we have a responsibility to our clients to give educated, informed advice, and then also synthesize what the rest of our clients are doing.
And accurate.
Exactly. Yeah. Accuracy, like how does this play? In a bonus depreciation environment, if you're in the 27th tax bracket, 27% tax bracket, which most of our clients are, right?
Yeah.
When you finance your airplane and you're putting 20% down, typically the back of the napkin math says that the savings from a tax perspective is about 20% of the purchase price. So really you're not having to come up with a lot of cash. Okay. Right. So you may put the cash down and then in 3 months have the savings from a tax standpoint, but it kind of rough back of the napkin math equates to that. So you're really only paying your interest expense over the life of your ownership of the aircraft. Now, this is not tax advice, to be clear. I am not a tax professional. But what a lot of my clients are doing is they're saying, I'm going to use that depreciation expense or that depreciation savings as my 20% down, and then I'm basically just paying my cost of capital, which is today somewhere between 6 and 7%, and that's really my cost of my carrying cost plus the real depreciation that happens. The financing conversation becomes easier to digest in a bonus depreciation environment, as opposed to in a 40%, you're still having all this cash expense and, moving stuff here and there. And really, at the end of the day, it might just make more sense to pay cash. And then you can also deduct your interest expense over time at the same proportion that you have business use. So let's say, Jason's going to come pick me up on Friday and we're going to go play golf. As well, we're in the industry. It might be a business expense. Who knows? But he may take exactly.
So,
maybe he takes his wife to a fancy dinner in New York.
Yeah, sure.
That probably doesn't count. So he does that 10% of the time. 90% of the time is for business. He can deduct 90% of his interest expense. So there's other calculations that go into that, and a lot of times our clients have better uses for their cash. than just sitting in an airplane, especially in a rate environment. Surprisingly, it's easier to make the justification for financing in a slightly elevated rate environment than a 0% rate environment, because it's all about risk-free yield, and that would get very, very technical. But talk to your financial advisor, figure out what your cash is making, then call me, and I'll say, yeah, probably makes sense, or no, it just definitely doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So in terms of the way everything's calculated, right? You've got you were explaining to me earlier that there are like 3 kind of like levers that you can pull in the way that they interact with each other. Can you tell me a little bit about that so I can understand it a little bit better?
When we talk about structuring the loan, you have 3 main components, and then there's some fringe kind of back end stuff. But your 3 main components are down payment, amortization, and interest rate. Those are the 3 things that we're really going to focus on.
Yeah.
They're interrelated. So they're levers that you can pull. If I want to drive my interest rate down, I can put more cash down.
Okay.
Keep the amortization. For those that don't know the word amortization, because it's a financy term.
Sure.
If you think about your home loan, you have a 30-year home loan. Well, home loans are calculated as 30-year term, 30-year amortization.
Right.
So my monthly payment is as if I have a 30-year, but I can hold it for 30 years. Airplane transactions are typically structured in a 5-year term and an amortization period that is longer than that. So there's a balloon payment at the end of the 5 years.
Okay.
It's a commercial lending regulation. There's a whole reason why that is the case, but that is typically how they're structured. So when I talk about amortization, I'm going to pay as if it was a 15-year loan, but at the end of the 60th month, the 5th year, I will have the outstanding balance will come due.
Gotcha.
So that's the end of the term. So when I talk about amortization, that's just so that everybody's kind of on the same playing field. So down payment, amortization, and then interest rate. Those are the 3 levers. So if you want a lower interest rate, shorten up your amortization, or raise your down payment. Interest rate is calculated based off of risk of not repaying. At the end of the day, the bank needs a yield on their money. So if you're more risky, your interest rate will be higher. They will require a larger down payment. And the down payment amortization has to do with if the bank has to go pick it up. The bank does not want that airplane back.
Right.
Period.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever had a client go default, but it's really rare. The bank is going to try and work with you. But amortization, it depends on what equity position you're in the aircraft, and it is what determines a lot of your monthly payment. And so if you want a longer amortization, you may have to come with another 5 or 10% down, or you may have to pay another 25 or 50 basis points, a quarter to a half point of interest in order to get that longer amortization. So we can play with those 3 levers depending on what your priorities are. So if you're saying my cost of capital, which is a fancy way of saying interest rate, is the most important thing, well, maybe we'll come in with another 5% down, shorten the amortization by 3 years, and we can maybe drive that down by 50 basis points, a half a percentage. Maybe that's important to you. Maybe you're a cash flow guy and you say, I want the lowest possible monthly payment. So maybe we'll pay a little bit more in interest, but we're going to kick the amortization out as long as we can and have as little money down. So it's those 3 things really interplay with each other when you're talking about structuring a loan.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
So if somebody's trying to work these 3 levers, right? Have you been into situations where, let's say you're talking to a broker that's representing somebody and they're trying to buy a jet. Have you been in situations where it's like, look, this may not be the right fit for you because I'm pulling all the levers that I can and it's just not matching up?
It happens. I would say it probably happens 15 to 20% of the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now there is always, you can get to a yes almost. It's almost, you can get to yes. I mean, I've gotten to yes in some pretty crazy background, there's like the whole like, oh, you have something crazy that happened in your background, or when I Google you, like the first thing that pops up and you're like, ooh.
We got like a mug shot and an article about what they did.
It's like a law. It's like a lawsuit.
Yeah.
If you want to know if you can get approved for a loan, Google your first last name lawsuit, and if something pops up in the top, it's going to be challenging. I mean, it just if there's anything like that's serious, like it's not something petty, like it's going to be tough. The answer is always yes. Okay. We can go to the private markets. We can go
get it there.
Yeah, we can go get an asset-based loan, but you're going to come out with 40% down. It's going to be like
high interest.
SOFR plus 8% as the floor, and it's going to go up from there. and it's going to be straight amortizing a 5-year term, 5-year amortization. So your monthly payment is going to be out the wazoo.
Right.
We can get to yes.
Yeah.
That's
That's
just
how much you want to pay
But
for.
what about chartering? Because you've got a whole like thing about chartering and debt service and cash flow positive and all that stuff.
There's two types of I'm going to charter my jet, and you've probably seen this with some of your clients. Yeah. You have like, I'm a rich guy, I'm going to buy the airplane, and some guys are really risk averse, and they put it on a charter certificate. And I tell people you should at least think about this. Is if you're going to let your buddies borrow your plane, chartering it to your friends gives you an extra layer of insulation that dry leases don't give you as much insulation. Not legal advice, not tax advice, just to be clear.
Yep.
A lot of people will throw it on a certificate so they can kind of charter it out lightly. That is one type of customer, which is I have the money. I don't need the charter revenue. It's nice to have. I may charter it here and there. I'm going to put it on the certificate. It's going to stay compliant for 135, all of those things. But from time to time, I will charter it. That's one type of client. No problem. Yeah. Lenders are going to have no issue with that because you're not massively depreciating the airplane by putting more hours on it. It's just nice to have. That's totally fine. It really doesn't limit your scope of lenders that will do that transaction. Yeah. Then you have, I'm going to fly 50 hours, and then I'm going to charter that 400 hours.
So like basically you're the next NetJet in your own mind, right? Like you're just doing the whole business model.
Correct.
Okay.
And you can do it. Yeah. There are scenarios in which essentially what you're doing is you're doing it off of your signature. So you're borrowing from the bank on your signature on your balance sheet, and then you're basically borrowing for 6%, and your rate of return to your charter operator might be 8.5%, right? So you're making a spread there. You're making some sort of spread there. Yeah. The problem is you're depreciating the airplane.
Right.
Like,
right.
If I was going to ask you how much is this airplane worth, what's like one of the first questions you're going to ask me? This is the spec.
If it's a 135 or a 91.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
How many hours, right?
Yep.
Right. Well, right. Whether it's been operated 135 or whether it's been operated 91.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I'm going to say, hey, this airplane.
If it's been chartered or it's been.
Right. So to be clear to me, the layperson here, 135 means chartered.
It's a chartered airplane.
Okay. Yeah. And 91 is a privately operated.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
No revenue.
I drew this illustration. I stole this from the FAA, to be clear. It's like the one piece of clever writing I've ever read in FAA documents. The FAA defines 91, like if you're going to do a dry lease, as a rental car.
Okay.
And a 135 as an Uber or a taxi.
And it draws that analogy.
It literally draws out that analogy. It's like you can go rent a car from Enterprise. That's a 91 dry lease.
Okay.
135 is you're paying for an Uber. One transaction, I pay you, you take me. That's it. That's just like a easy way to figure out the difference.
Yeah.
Right. But you're gonna ask that, and then the next question is how many hours does it have on it? And when it's on a 135 certificate and I'm flying 50 and I'm flying at 400 hours, I'm now 100 hours over the fleet average, which may be 350 hours, right?
Most likely. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I know that like in the large cabin space that the fleet average kind of goes up because you go longer.
Yep, exactly.
But you're looking at the fleet average, and this guy has chartered the absolute bejesus out of this airplane.
Right.
So it's going to depreciate faster. Yeah. Well, the bank doesn't want to be in it backwards. The bank will not let you be upside down in the airplane. Yep. So your amortization is shorter. Like but those are the two types of clients that are saying there is I'm going to charter this opportunistically, and then there's I want to make money, and then there's even guys who go they're kind of fringy approvable, right? Like they could be approved, maybe not, and then they're like, well, I'm going to have all this cash flow from the charter. And the bank's like, we're just not going to count it.
Do they try to get into situations where it's like, well, maybe I don't want to buy it myself and charter it, but I want to get into a fractional ownership situation with other people? Like, what is that?
Yeah, that's different. They like, well, there's like NetJet's FlexJet. That's like I'm signing up for a program, and then there's me and Jason are going to go buy an airplane together.
Yeah.
The bank will look at global cash flow. So like maybe I could afford to have a half airplane, or like we're going to buy a $10 million plane together. I could afford a $5 million plane on my own. Right. He can afford a $5 million plane on his own. Together we can afford a $9 million. Like it's not 1-to-1, but yeah, you can get together and do kind of shared ownership.
Nice.
And you can finance it. You have to really like your partner, first of all.
Yeah, a lot of friendships end with joint ownership of airplanes.
Yeah.
Now you've had to kind of like come in clutch for people before, right? Like
Yeah.
whenever like things were down to the wire. And you told me a story about Mexico earlier.
Yeah.
Can you share that with us?
Yeah.
Yeah. What happened where you had to kind of like really go a little bit above and beyond?
Yeah. So I had a client this year, and we were running up against his purchase agreement that expired on the 31st, and his deposit had already gone hard. So in this scenario, he had a $2 million hard deposit that technically, according to the APA, the seller could walk away with on the 1st. They could just walk away. They could wipe their hands of the deal. The money.
So basically, it's like you got to give us $2 million in order to get started on this transaction. But if for whatever reason it doesn't get done by this date, we have the option of keeping that.
Yeah, I don't know how you structure your transactions. This is a little plug for like using the right broker, because I've had deals where the broker structured the deal terribly.
Okay.
But your broker is going to help advise you on when you want that to be able to be non-refundable.
Right.
Because it's refundable at first, and then it becomes non-refundable at a point.
And the reason you do that is you don't want to like leave people hanging. Is that what it is? Or you don't want the thing to be off the market?
Yeah, this is
Well, right. After a certain amount of time goes by, you want to guarantee the seller that, hey, this is going to work.
Yeah.
We've already taken your airplane pretty much off the market for, however many weeks.
Yeah.
So there has to be some reciprocating. And that's
Gotcha.
usually it with the money going.
Okay, so you're not just stringing them along.
Exactly.
because it's
Yeah.
there's like a soft deposit and a hard deposit,
That's
right?
right. It starts soft, right, up to a certain point, and then
Okay.
once we hit a certain threshold, then it becomes a hard number.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
which means it's non-refundable.
Yeah.
So this contract explodes on the 31st. It's the 27th. I'm calling this guy 4 times a day, every day. Hey, man, I know that this is going to sound preposterous, but the bank requires a wet signature on your loan documents. It's like 70% of banks probably require wet physical blue ink signatures. He's at his hotel in Mexico.
Okay.
The attorney is in Oklahoma. The bank is in Florida. And so,
And you're where?
and I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Okay.
So I'm at home at my office.
Lots of.
It's like there's
Things
a lot of people
happen.
everywhere.
Okay.
The broker is calling me as often as I'm calling the client. We're both trying to get in contact with this guy. Like, you have to sign these documents. And he calls me and he's like, hey, man, what's going on? I was like, what's going on? I've been calling you for 2 weeks. I said, I'm going to email you these documents. I need you to print them. Single-sided. Print, sign, scan, send. I had my finger on the button at Delta to get on a plane to find him. Literally, I was going to
go
go
do it for him.
I was going to go sit in the lobby. The broker is texting me meantime nonstop. Have you gotten it done? Has it gotten
Freaking out.
freaking out?
His money's on the line.
So I'm like, okay, so I've got everything. And I said, all right, I need you to take this up there. I get the scan, I send it in, and we closed, I think, 48 hours before the deposit would have walked away. And I don't think the VA understood, the lady at the hotel understood, not even sure the client understood how expensive it was going to be if he didn't sign those correctly.
This is exactly why you want to have the right people in this situation, because, Preston's going to do what it takes. Some
sure
other
it
dude might
happens.
not.
Right.
Some other guy might, hey, it's not my problem, buddy. It's yours.
And having a broker that had the foresight to kick the hard deposit out further,
Yeah.
because he knew no one could get in contact with this client. So it may not have anything to do with anybody's fault other than the fact this guy doesn't answer the phone.
Yeah.
But he knew that because he's been working with the guy for 2 years.
That's
and it's
awesome.
like,
Get to this point. Yeah.
exactly.
Did it happen recently enough that he's able to get the bonus depreciation for this?
It actually happened late enough. He was supposed to close before the deadline.
Okay.
And because he was unresponsive, he saved himself a lot of money in tax.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that crazy? He was supposed to close on like January 4th, and then he didn't close till like
Maybe he had it all
27th.
planned out,
Yeah.
man. He was playing
He knew
4D
it was
chess with the
coming.
whole thing.
Exactly. He's playing chess when we're playing checkers. So.
That's it. Before we go, Preston, is there anything else that you can think of that other people might need to know? I do want to plug the VIP seat with you and Jesse Nair. And I also want to plug, your newsletter, the Private Jet Insider, which is not only on your website but is also published on LinkedIn, right?
Yep.
Anything else before we take off that we need to be that a potential private jet owner needs to be thinking about that you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I think, look, you cannot cash flow positive jet. I don't care how many times you see it on TikTok. I don't care how many people, how many times you listen to whoever is going to tell you that you can cash flow positive jet. It's something that's like, it's
Not
almost a
happening.
platform that I have is like, it's just not going to happen. When you're thinking about buying and owning an aircraft, there's assembling the right transaction team. We talked about this earlier, but I want to double click. I have watched so many people lose millions of dollars because they had the wrong transaction team around them. And that's not even finance. If you're paying cash, real estate guys are really bad at this. Anybody who does like deal junkie type guys are really bad at this. They're like, oh yeah, I'm going to run my own transaction. Or I'm going to go get something off market because this guy told me I have something off market. Oh, and I'll have to pay a fee.
Right.
Like, those are all of the ways that you are really getting screwed over. So assemble the transaction team and assemble it early and check your references and know who you're working with. Because if not, you can get taken. And the thing is about this business, when you're talking about transaction sizes this large, it tends to bring out some very curious characters.
Yes. Yeah.
Avoid those as much as you can. The only way to do that is to have a transaction team that is all working for you and not all the same people, because everybody's holding each other accountable and keeping each other in check. Be sure to assemble a good transaction team that you can trust, and it will take you a long way in all of your transactions. That's like my big plug. And I'm a huge fan of high quality transaction brokers that know what they're talking about, who have years and years and years of experience. There is a movement towards you can sell jets with no experience necessary.
There is. Yeah. Yep.
There is a lot of experience necessary to sell airplanes. So that's my
Especially when a lot of commas are involved.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. When the commissions are big and someone can sell one airplane and go sit in their basement for the rest of the year, like go with known entities, go with known commodities. So that's my rant. I guess I'll get off my soapbox.
No, I love it. That's good. That's
Awesome.
great. It's great,
Preston, dude, thank you so much for being
This is fun. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching Own the Jet. If you want to see more Own the Jet, make sure to subscribe to our channel on YouTube and leave a comment telling us what aspect of jet ownership you'd like to know more about. Own the Jet is brought to you by Aspen Aero Group, your trusted partner in private and corporate jet ownership. Learn more at aspenaerogroup.com. This has been a Savage Media production.